Hey guys, this is Sandra of the Alexandrite system. Today we're going to be talking about another DID webcomic that I love, Faces of One. Faces of One is a 2018 autobiographical webcomic centering around a system of five: Jack, Kira, Adam, Ian, and Luna. The comic centers around their life as a system and all of the successes and struggles that go along with it. Recently I got to sit down with Jack to talk about the comic and life as a system in general. So welcome to another installment of System. Would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Hi, my name is Jack. I'm one of the members of the Faces of One. We do a webcomic about our life and our experiences, and yeah.
So, what led to the creation of the comic?
I was on Reddit and on Tumblr, and so I liked looking at memes and things like that. Just as a way of kind of relating to some of the feelings that I had. And I had the idea for a meme, but I'm not very um, handy with programs. I'm not very hip, so I don't know correct meme formats. So I just wanted to do a comic that was kind of just based around someone saying like, oh, I have work me, I have a drinking me, I have a home me. It's totally natural. Don't worry about it. And I made the comic because that's just something that I wanted to see out there in the media, and it just kind of developed from that. I realized I could express myself with the stick figures.
Is making the comic a group effort, or are you the primary person who makes it?
It is a group effort. Primarily, it's me, Adam, and Kira.
Mhm.
Ian likes to have a lot of ideas. He's definitely an idea generator for
Mhm.
us, but generally, he doesn't really draw. However, whenever we have someone speak, we do try our hardest to get that person to come to the front and actually do their own handwriting. We feel that it validates them and makes it a little bit more genuine from the fact that they're not only they're agreeing with it, but they're saying it themselves.
That makes sense. I have noticed that, and I definitely feel it adds like a really personal touch to those comics.
I do try to put all of myself into it, into my work, and whether it's the emotions of dealing with a particular topic, or sometimes the arguments and the conflict that we have with each other and how we interpret certain events. And so I really feel that putting that extra effort of myself, even just down to the some of the more subtle things like the handwriting, I think it helps.
I've noticed that you guys seem to have rotated hosts a couple of times over the past, say, 4 or 5 years or so. Has that presented any difficulties in your life at all?
No, it's been something that's been new for us. For most of our life, we were used to one solitary host at any given time, and we were used to certain eras. And so my era was between the ages of 16 and 22, and then Kira took over the life and made it what she wanted it to be, and lived how she wanted to live. And that was for the next 4.5 years of my life. And then that around that time, I had a real dark depression. Things happened that caused us to kind of like analyze what was going on, in the background and everything. And then so from there, we realized that it's not just me; it's all of us. And so we've tried our best to cohabitate and allow everybody their chance to be, if they want to. But primarily, it's me and Kira.
From like one longtime host to another here, have you found it difficult to consciously share your life in that way?
Yeah, it was. That's definitely been one of my personal struggles because I was definitely made for the body. I was made for this life and to be a certain person and be a certain way. But I didn't really recognize that until much later. So I had a lot of competing influences that I had to kind of work around or work through um, during that time, and so feeling like it wasn't exactly my life or completely my life has definitely been difficult. But I've learned, the more that I learn about each other, the more I realize where my place is.
That makes sense. Is that a cat?
Yeah, this is Peabody.
Aw.
Say hi,
Are
Peabody.
they a boy or a girl?
She's a girl.
Aw. Peabody is adorable. What impact do you hope that the comic has on others, both systems and singlets?
I like teaching people. I guess I'd start with the singlets or just the people who have interactions with systems. I
Mhm.
like being able to explain certain things or certain phenomena or feelings in a way that is accessible to them. Because then I feel that it can help them help systems themselves because they kind of already have like a, oh, I saw, a comic dealing about this, and maybe it's not this particular way that I thought it was, but it could be this. Because I think where there's a big gap is the understanding between singlets and systems, and sometimes that a singlet who thinks that they understand it one way, basically what media has taught them and things like that, they have a limited focus of what it means to be a system.
Do you find there's anything in particular that singlets tend to have a hard time wrapping their minds around?
Actually, yeah, introjects I think are a difficult one. I was thinking about doing a comic about this upcoming pretty soon because I don't have any introjects or extrajects, so I can't really speak too much on that. However, in people that I've talked to about it, that seems to be the one that they don't understand very easily. Um, and so my idea is explaining to them how I often explain is like, as a child, if it's this, TV character that you feel most connected with and feels like, they can help you, they can save you, makes complete sense that, one of your alters would be this person in popular media. And that's just, one example. I often feel that I can explain things in a pretty easy way. I feel that when the people that I talk to about DID, about systems, I think that they get it, they understand a lot more. But partly in that is I have a very small system. I don't have any non-humans. I don't have any interjects. So from that standpoint, I'm giving them kind of a starter course of
Mhm.
what to expect. And generally, when I do talk to these people, I express that as like, this is just me. There's plenty of other different systems that work in different ways. The best thing that you can do is just listen to that particular person, and not take everything that I said as like the strict lines of what it means to be a system.
So what impact does making the comic have on you and your system?
We've been able to communicate a lot better because we'll be going about our day and we'll kind of speak to each other in almost comic form in our brain. So I'll be doing something, and if Kira is kind of upset with it, rather than coming in and saying, just yelling at me or criticizing me, she'll kind of show me a comic of her reaction to whatever it is I'm doing. So it's almost it's a calmer, nicer way of kind of interjecting her thoughts and feeling. On top of that, being able to represent ourselves, physically in our particular shapes. How Adam is very blocky and triangular. Kira has her ponytail, and she really enjoys. And so, Ian being the height that he's supposed to be is very gratifying. So it's a little thing, but being able to see yourself reflected has been just wonderful.
Do you ever worry about being a system publicly in this way?
Yeah, there's some pressure, pressure as far as being a kind of representative in a way. I want to make sure that even though I'm telling my own stories and my own experiences, I want to make it. Um, I don't want to mess up.
Mhm.
I don't want to trigger somebody. I don't want to influence somebody who shouldn't be influenced in that way. And then yeah, so the other thing that I worry about is that I like to share my content, and I like to share my experience, but I have been treated differently once people have known about me as a system. And oftentimes there's this almost kind of morbid curiosity that people want to know more, more details or more intimate knowledge. And sometimes I'm treated a particular way that's very uncomfortable, and so in that sense, it makes it hard to be completely open about it, because oftentimes I just weigh it out and it's like, is it worth it to be open to this one person, or is it worth it to deal with everything that comes with it?
It's such a difficult trade-off between the comfort of being yourself and I guess the unbearable likeness of being known. Going back to your first point about like being representation to other systems or like influencing them in that way. Do you ever have that feeling of like, oh God, I can't be a role model. My life isn't nearly as together as I put forward.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I still have, bad days, bad weeks. I still, I get by very simply. I don't do a whole lot. So I definitely don't feel myself as a role model, but I like to still show that you can get through it. One of the things that I used to like to say, I did a small comic back before I was on Instagram, but sometimes the difference between night and morning is staying awake to see the day, and it was generally based around getting through it, sticking with it, just not giving up, because eventually the night will end and you will see the sunrise and you will see things change. So that's played a big part into my comics. Is I try to keep things relatively lighthearted, and just uh, remind people that we can make it. We can make it through. We can continue to be here. If that's the least that you can do, that is monumental. A lot of people don't realize how hard being here can be.
I found that so much system media, even that which is made by systems, tends to be rather grim and rather pessimistic, which is, I mean,
Hmm.
an unfortunate reality of just like being a system. But I found that works such as yours that focus more on hope and positivity are a real breath of fresh air. It's just, I don't know, it's something that we try in our channel a lot more because we were just sick of feeling like our life was just going to be complete misery now that we like knew about the system.
Hmm. There's a large tendency to focus on the trauma, and there's definitely a place for that. There's a time and place for that, but I like to stray away from that, because our everyday experiences aren't traumatic. Our
Mhm.
everyday experiences make up 95% of our life story. But when people solely focus on that, that early trauma, then it gives a different tone to it, and I like to only use that tone when necessary.
So more on representation in the system community. You guys are an OSDD system, correct?
Yes.
We're also an OSDD system. I found that we're very underrepresented in the system community, at least on a more public front, you know.
Hmm.
Why do you think that is?
I would have to say that it is a more extreme example. Extreme is not the right word, but it's a more easily recognizable example. I often I have mixed feelings about the show The United States of Terra, because while it did show a very accurate form of DID, it showed the more rare form of DID, so it was more sensationalized because it was easier to grasp. Things like subtle shifts, co-consciousness aren't easily portrayed on the big screen or the any media form for that matter. It's less showy. I feel that if you have a character that absolutely changes their complete accent, changes how they appear, it makes it like, oh, this person has alters. It's hammered down into the fact. I think dealing with the majority of people who have more of a lean more towards OSDD, they kind of lose that storied, I guess, trope. Oftentimes they portray us in a particular small box, and I think that it what's the word I'm looking for? It's not that word. It just it limits us. It limits our representation.
We've also definitely had that feeling of like it's less flashy than DID, and therefore it doesn't get that same spotlight. How do you feel about being among that sparse representation for OSDD?
It's a little scary, kind of like how we talked about before. Being being public about it. There's so many differences between systems and how they interact and how they how they form, how they work, that I'm constantly wanting to put the disclaimer, this is just me, this is just how how my personal system works. And that's why I strongly encourage any other system that wants to start making content, whether it's comics, like I do, or just art or videos, or I strongly encourage that, because only they can tell their story, as only I can tell mine. The more people that we get into this artistic community, the better our collective story becomes.
You've also mentioned in your comics having either bipolar disorder or some form of mania as well as DID.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel that those two interact?
For the most part, it's mainly me who has the bipolar. I've noticed this because I've seen when I would have a switch, and suddenly all those feelings subsided. I still had the same general thoughts about it and everything, but everything seemed to be a lot calmer. So I've come to realize that it's mainly me who has it. Kira has depression, so that still comes, but when it comes to the manic feelings, that's kind of relegated to my personality. Our little also has Tourette syndrome. When he's out, he can't help it. It's completely uncontrollable for him. However, when one of us are out and he's having an episode, we can feel it. We can feel his his need, his struggle to do it. Having both OSDD and bipolar, kind of one side has fed the other, because for the longest time, I've been diagnosed as bipolar type 2, and that was kind of a way of explaining a lot of the stuff that I was feeling, but not everything. I would go into groups with other people who were having bipolar, and I would talk about some of my experiences, and it'd be like, oh, don't you just hate when this happens? And the other person's like, oh yeah, all the time. And they would be like, oh, what about this? Isn't that the worst? And I'd be like, yeah. And then I would mention something system related. It'd be like, don't you just hate where you make yourself your favorite food, and then the moment you put it in your mouth it tastes like garbage? And they would look at me like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And so I began to realize that yes, I am bipolar, but no, that's not all of it, and that there was more to what I was experiencing, what was going on, than just that. So in some senses, the bipolar didn't let me see, didn't let me know exactly what was going on, because the moment that I had my diagnosis and it was like, I understand this, I agree with this is, the correct thing for me, made any kind of like searching for everything else that was going on, I stopped doing that, because I felt like, oh, this diagnosis is where it's at.
I very much empathize with that. We're also bipolar. Do you ever have trouble, like even now, like post system discovery? Do you have trouble sorting out which symptoms are a switch and which symptoms are a swing?
A switch and a swing. That's interesting. I've never heard that. Yeah, I still have difficulty determining, which actions and emotions kind of come from where. But self-analysis has been something that I've done ever since, I was a child. My parents, taught me to be very emotionally aware. And so things are still relatively easy for me to find out. Like, I can take a step back and being like, okay, am I manic right now? What am I feeling? Check my, five senses, um, and determine whether or not, something is a product of either bipolar or being a system, or whether, it's something else that I should, pay attention to.
I will wrap this up by asking the two questions I ask everyone who comes on the show. If you could vanish any one piece of system-related media, what would it be and why?
So I'm probably a broken record here, but Split, obviously needs to take a hike. One of my biggest problems with it is that it makes, whenever I'm explaining, DID or SDD, it makes my job 5 times harder when the person has seen the movie, because then they're like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm like, no. Okay, and then it gives me like an uphill battle of miscorrecting, or correcting misinformation, things like that. I was doing kind of a tester podcast with a friend of mine, and I started to talk about it, and he cuts me off and says, "If you don't know what he's talking about, just go see the movie Split, and that'll explain everything." And I'm just like, "No, no, dude, no! What are you doing?" Because the movie presents it as this is fact and this is knowledge. Then you deal with a person who thinks that they already know, and then you have to go back and correct that, and just to get to ground zero again. It's terrible. The other one I would say, because I'm sure everyone says Split, so the other one I would say would be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It kills me because it's a great story. I grew up with it. I enjoy it, but it does root in the idea of the evil alter fairly hard when looked at as a piece of DID literature. It definitely presents that trope of the gentleman side and then the evil side.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so as much as it pains me, I would say Doctor, if not Split, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde would be on the list of media to go.
Finally, do you have anything to say to other systems out there?
Uh, how can you beat that? Communication is definitely a big thing. It's helped out ourselves a lot. Not just being able to know about ourselves, but about each other and how to work better. Um, when you have one alter that struggles with self harm or eating disorders or any kind of self esteem issues, you can kind of understand them a little bit better, and you can communicate better. When it came to my struggles with self harm, um, communicating with my little made a world of difference, because I knew that it wasn't just me that I was harming. It was also other members of my system. And as self-destructive as I am, I'm not outwardly destructive. I don't want to hurt them. And so coming together and communicating, whether it's just in your own headspace, whether you're talking out loud, whether you're writing in a journal of some sort or messaging on some sort of app. Just always keep communication at the forefront of your minds.
That pretty much does it for my questions. Where can people find you online?
I mostly post on Instagram at faces.of.one. I post on Tumblr at facesofone.tumblr.com. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I have no plans to be. I am on Reddit, but that's mainly just to kind of catalog all my comics and keep them in one space. So it's mainly Tumblr and Instagram.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and for talking with me. It was great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you again to Jack for sitting down with us, and thank you all for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.